Yeah, so you see people crawling through a fireplace, or you see people go through a glowing fridge, or come down a slide inside the laundry room in the dryer. And what we like to do is take something that's ordinary and turn it into something extraordinary. So you figure out that the fridge, the fireplace, and the bathroom are portals to another dimension behind the house. And once you pass through one of these portals, you find yourself inside an alien spaceship, or you see people playing a mastodon skeleton like a musical instrument, or you see a whimsical lighthouse. And each one of these new spaces that you enter is interactive and immersive, and it adds to that story in some shape or form. So just like our CRT TV tunnel here in the exhibit, that's a tribute to technologies that are passing in entertainment, my today's presentation is a shout out to some of the new tech and emerging technologies that are coming our way. The Navigator is a large-scale quadruped mech sculpture that is going to be inside of our Denver exhibit. And it's an R&D prototype of what we can do within immersive storytelling and immersive exhibits. It will be in the Ice World themed area of the Denver exhibit, and here you're embodying a navigator who is trying to learn how to pilot this mech and save their planet from eternal winter. For this project, we used emerging technologies like 3D printing, laser cutting, and head-mounted retinal displays to immerse you into the story. So to build a large-scale sculpture like the Navigator that's about 18 by 10 by 10 feet large, we used ZBrush for concept art. And once we concepted the model, we imported that model into SketchUp and used it to previs how the large-scale sculpture is going to look inside the exhibit. We used tools like VR headsets to really give us a feel of the placement, the scale, and the overall look of the sculpture inside the space. These sketches then further were allowing our structural engineering teams to develop a carrying skeleton for the sculpture and ensure that it's safe for climbing. Then we used Rhino to prepare the external skin of the sculpture for 3D printing and laser cutting. While our fabrication team in the model shop was busy building the sculpture, our technology team built prototypes of the pilot's control panel, which controls the mech's interactivity. The control panel has a number of custom-made capacitive touch sensors and a trackball, as well as retina displays and programmable LEDs. All of these electronics are then driven either by Arduino, Tinsy, or a Windows PC. Meanwhile, while our physical fabrication teams are busy on the sculpture, our content teams were busy developing the narrative, the animations, the gameplay, and the sound for this experience. We used Cinema 4D to create the animations that you see on the control panel. And then we partnered with Magnopus in Los Angeles to create the visuals inside of the Magic Leap experience. For this, we had to create a remote workflow since they did not have the physical control panel in front of them for testing. Since most of our electronics use OSC as a communication protocol, Magnopus used an iPad simulator with Touch OSC to mimic the controls of the physical panel. This way, we could test the gameplay during development and give fairly quick feedback to Magnopus of what was working and what wasn't working. Unity was the game engine used for this project. So when you do climb on the mech and you are the pilot, you can enter one of two modes of gameplay. The first mode is So the first mode is Explorer. So the Explorer mode onboards you into the gameplay. It lets you interact with this new strange solar system that has 2 planets, 2 suns and 7 planets. And it familiarizes you as the pilot to the custom-made control panel. So unlike most gaming controllers where you're used to a handheld controller, we built a controller of our own. After that, you can enter the Navigator mode. Inside the Navigator mode, you're prompted to solve puzzles by aligning the planets. Each puzzle becomes more difficult, and as a reward, you get a more elaborate animation played out. So we can look at one of them. So this is from Magic Leap, directly from the headset. And you just met Supercube. Supercube is one of our beloved characters at Meow Wolf that we have both in digital and physical modes. When you put together all of these elements, like the sculpture, the artwork, the gameplay, the emerging tech, the media, and you think about how this can be expanded to something that's 40 or 60,000 square feet, like our Denver or Washington, DC exhibits that are upcoming, you kind of start getting a sense where some of these mixed reality and digital overlays are going to come into play in our lives in the future, and how location-based entertainment can be transformed in a different way, and a novel way. So that's my presentation. Thank you. And if anyone has any questions.
I'd heard of this project before in Santa Fe, and I think it's really interesting. I was very curious to know the size of the facility where this house is located, because it seems once you go into the world, it gets really big.
Yeah, so the Santa Fe exhibit called the House of Eternal Return is about 30,000 square feet. We are opening a Las Vegas exhibit at the end of this year that's going to be 50,000 square feet, followed by a Denver exhibit of 60,000 exhibit space, 60,000 square feet of exhibit space, and then a Washington, D.C. exhibit of 40,000 square feet.
I have been to the House of Eternal Return several times, and it's quite terrific, and it seems much larger even than the numbers you just heard, because you keep going around some other corner and you explore some completely different thing.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. It's true. We try to play and give you an illusion that the space is kind of a space-time warp. And hopefully, every time you go back, you do discover something new.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much, Selma. Oh, wait.
Wait, there's more.
So I couldn't really tell from the presentation, but these experiences, are they essentially the same each time you go through, or are there random things that, like say you go multiple times, will you have a different experience each time? Like are there things that are randomly generated?
So each location is very different and will have a different narrative. Every time you go through the exhibit, since you're allowed to free roam, unlike most LBEs where you are somehow on rails, it's up to you how much time you spend inside of the exhibit. It's up to you how much you dig through every fake website that we built, every fake book that we put in there that's adding to the narrative. So it's really up to you. You can't see and touch everything in a day. So your experience will change. Also, we do regular upgrades to the exhibit, so when patrons do come back and participate in the exhibit, they will see new areas of the exhibit they didn't see last time.
And there are times where you make a selection of which portal you're going to leave a particular area through, and that takes you to a completely different thing.
Yeah, true.
Can you describe the organization that's behind this? I mean, where did this come from, and how does it support itself, and how is it governed? I mean, who's behind this?
Yeah, so the Meow Wolf started as a group of about 8 to 10 artists that could not break it in the gallery scene in Santa Fe, which is the third largest art market in the United States. And after a while, they kind of blew a fuse and decided to open up their own exhibit space. The first exhibit, House of Eternal Return, was sponsored actually by Mr. George R.R. Martin, who wrote the Game of Thrones. And it has become since then the #1 tourist attraction in New Mexico. We get about 500,000 visitors per year with a healthy revenue. After that, we have gotten serious investments to open up 3 more exhibits.
I noticed specifically for the Magic Leap integration that it appeared to be a single attendee experience and a lot of space dedicated to one person. Imagine there's a lot of time dedicated to one person. Do you see ways of using the augmented reality technology to help a lot of people, like increase the bandwidth of how many experiences you can achieve?
Yeah, so the Navigator was really our first prototype. We haven't tried anything in mixed reality prior to this experiment. Our current prototype that we are building is a multiplayer, multi-user experience, and it allows you to have an experience while you're waiting in queue to use the experience, as well as having up to 4 users inside the experience. So we are toying around how to expand this concept inch by inch. It's really kind of, start with something simple, get that working, and then start adding more and more layers, as most of you are familiar when you're doing any kind of engineering development. So we are now trying to figure out different things like occlusion of other visitors inside the space when we have a multi-user experience. We're trying to figure out servers that can play back different, or that can broker different experiences for the users. We also are trying to figure out how do we use different game engines so we don't limit the artists that come externally and contribute to the exhibit with the software tools that they use to create the experience. So there's a lot of work on the back end that we're doing, as well as how to broaden the multi-user, multiplayer experience inside the exhibit, and each time increase that number.
How many of you want to go to that? There you get some more patrons.
Thank you.
Thank you, Selma.
Thank you.